the three of you guys, man. Thank you for what you guys do, and appreciate you guys having me on.
We were trying not to score and everything. We hit about 30-33s or something.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of felt that. We kind of feed off that energy.
This place is amazing. Like I really love Duke, and I love the atmosphere I'm in here.
Mark Williams, beast mode. Paolo first half, he had the cramping stuff. Fair enough. Beast mode.
Welcome back to the Crazy Cast. It's been about a month. We apologize. We needed an off season too. You know, we needed a break from a long stretch of a great season, but sad ending. You know, but I'm here with my guy Russ. We're here to give you the off season podcast. Maybe one of a couple. Hopefully, we get a guest on this off season. Shire maybe part two. May opt for another coach as well. So we'll try to give you guys as much as we can. But for the current stretch, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to catch up on. A lot of moves that may not happen. A lot of departures. But first, Russ, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm on no sleep here. Baby watch 2025. Last night was a scorcher, so I'm on no sleep. But what else doesn't sleep? Duke basketball recruiting. So we're of one mind, one body, one soul. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. Shout out to your baby for dealing with you as a father. But we got a lot to talk about today. Duke added another commitment in Sebastian Wilkins from the Boston area earlier this week. Dame Sarr committed, the prospect out of Italy who was playing overseas at Barcelona. But way before that, rewind. After the Houston debacle, Duke obviously lost Cooper Flagg, lost Common Malawach, Khan Knipple, Tyrese Proctor, obviously Sion James. Then Duke followed that up with adding Cedric Coward, and that may be in limbo. So let's talk about Cedric first. Your first initial reaction to adding Cedric, and obviously we have to talk about what the situation is now.
I mean, great fit. He's a guy that has very limited reps against tier 1 type teams, tier 1 type games. So yeah, I didn't know much about him, admittedly. Right, I had not watched much Eastern Washington. I was just sort of looking at the stats, and truthfully, until it became clear that we were going to get him, I hadn't watched much. Right, but I look at the stats, and you go, okay, really good at finishing at the rim. Clearly, really good from 2. Right, smooth shooter. You can sort of see that on any tape of his highlights. Right, it just looks good, and it goes in at a high volume. Coming off an injury, always a bit of a concern, when we talk about a couple of guys on the team who have had injuries in the last year or two. You don't want to keep stacking injuries, but the fit seemed so obvious. And somebody had told me that they thought he had, even more sort of secondary playmaker potential than he had really the opportunity to show at a higher level. And because that was something we had talked about when the season ended, Duke looking for playmaking, right? Duke likes to run 2 guys who can handle the ball on the floor at all times. 2 guys who can sort of create for others on the floor at all times. And, I love Isaiah Evans. I'm very, very excited he's back. One of my favorite, most fun players in recent memory. But he's not really that guy, or at least he hasn't been yet so far in his Duke career. So I never believed that he would be playing the 2 for Duke, being that guy. That just never seemed like a real possibility. So then we knew he was gonna look for somebody like that, and it seemed like Coward would be that guy. And then the most meteoric rise in the history of mock draft hype that I can recall, which look, it's not unearned. I mean, look at his athleticism measurements. Look at his wingspan. The 3-point shooting that he made. I mean, I'm not saying that it's completely out of the clear blue sky. I mean, the guy very clearly fits what NBA teams are looking for from that sort of player. But it was kind of interesting to me that he was not really a player on draft boards last offseason. Not really. Maybe, on the fringe. He plays, 6 games for Washington State, something like that. Only one against a good team. Not even a good team, but like a high major team. And he wasn't very good in that game. And then he missed the rest of the season with an injury. And then all of a sudden he's getting like top 20 buzz. That's
So you're saying because he committed to Duke, it factored into his draft stock.
Either that or very savvy people saw the same thing that John saw, and they all noticed it at like the exact same time. That's not outside the realm of possibility. I also have no doubt that, like, hey, if you're a guy coming off of an injury stricken season, you have your agent out there doing hard work too. Putting the good word out there, being like, hey, my guy is 6'6", he shoots dead eye from 3. He's got some playmaking potential. He's good at the rim. Like, what do you want? Yeah, the wingspan. I mean, ridiculous, right? So I'm not saying, I know that's like the popular thing that's out there. I don't know that, but it certainly is a bit unfortunate that it happened the way that it did, because he seems like such a clear fit for next year's team.
Yeah.
So, but now he seems likely to be going to the draft, it seems. But I mean, I have no sources on that, but I think the fact that Duke made a heavy push for Sarr, like literally right after all of Coward's combine measurements, I don't think is a huge coincidence. There's tea leaves there that one can read.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and look, we'll talk about Sarr in a minute too, and maybe we should just table this for after we talked about the players. But man, Duke fan reaction this summer has been.
Oh no. We could get into that. The first thing we could cover that first off, because we'll get back. I'll say my 2 cents on Carroll first. Coward, I think you pretty much covered all. I think at this point, can we expect him back? Should we expect him back? Absolutely not. Is there still a small percentage, small chance that he pulls out for some reason, if he doesn't believe that 25 to 30 range is confident enough for him to make that jump? Sure. Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely not. I think he's staying in the draft. But good for him. I was excited for him because how he talked about playing, how he wanted to play for Duke, and
the interviews were great.
Yeah, the structure of the roster, he had it mapped out in his mind, and that's a kid like that was bound to excel at Duke. But it happens. It happens. And that was the risk. Duke knew that ahead of time. That's what I knew, is Duke knew that ahead of time that there was a chance he could leave. And we're heading towards that. But first, let's address the fandom, because the fandom has been crazy this offseason. Russ, this has been the craziest offseason. I like the most tension I've ever seen in a Duke like offseason ever. Because like we were just fresh off of a Final Four appearance. Yes, they failed. It was a great team. Should have won a national championship. Great season. One of the better Duke teams we've ever seen. And just the emotion has been. It got to the point where I had to enter the Trilly chat, and I did not want to do that, but it just got to a point, because obviously everyone knows I'll get DMs every day from people asking me questions. I ignore 95% of them because sometimes I just don't know. I don't know everything. But it got to a point where everyone was just, yo, what's this? I tweet something a little, and everyone takes an inch and just grows it into a mile. Like, just calm down. what's all this animosity, all this drama toward even people this summer doubting Shire? Like Shire has lost his touch. Like, where is that coming from? Where is that coming from as a fan base? I just thought it was ridiculous this summer. Like, we got to be better.
There's people are spoiled. Like I got angry about it at one point. I tweeted that people need to go outside and enjoy the beautiful sunshine, and that you're a dumbass if you think that unless Duke gets all the best portal pieces and retains everybody and has a number one class, that it's like some god awful offseason. I mean, like, it's the only fan base that thinks this way. I mean, really. I know there are other delusional fan bases. There are some in our state, but like there are delusional fan bases out there. But like, but man, the level of delusion this offseason when people thought, first of all, even before Coward, people were mad that Duke wasn't making moves in the first like weeks of the portal, which was insane. Like, I look, would I have loved to see Donovan Dent in a Duke uniform? Of course. But him going to UCLA makes it pretty clear that he had intentions on going to UCLA. I mean, he committed in like 3 days or whatever, right? Like, it was so fast. So what are you going to do? That happens. It's not 2K. You can't just get every single person you want and magically make the fit happen. Like, this staff very clearly is looking for something specific. And so they're not just going to like pick and choose random dudes. The number of players that, scored 18 points a game on like 39%, 28%, 68% splits that people would be like, oh, but he's got potential. Let's bring him in. Like, dude, like they're not looking into the portal for dudes who are like reclamation projects. They're looking for guys who can fit in right away. Yeah. So that meant that this year, there was a limited number, right? There were a couple of dudes that would have been nice if they'd entered the portal. They didn't. Would have been nice. Again, I certainly can dream about all-American level players joining Duke, but it's also hard to look. I don't know how to say this, nicely, I guess, but if you think that guys who have All-American aspirations, and I don't mean like All-American upside, I mean like they were already in the All-American conversation regardless of where they go. If you think they're going to come to a roster that's already so stacked, like most of the time that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the ball in their hands. They're looking for the opportunity to be an All-American again next year. Like the Sion Jameses of the world are not they're few and far between. They're few and far between. Most Sion could have gone to any school he wanted and put up like 18 points per game, and said he didn't want that. He wanted to come compete for a title. That's great. That makes him a rare breed, man. But like most players do not want that. And frankly, I understand. I'm not begrudging them that. Like, why would you want to go to a team where a lot of the time the offense is going to be get the ball to the guy who's a top 3 draft pick next year, right? Like, get him the ball. A lot of these guys who people were DMing me and messaging me about, oh, we need to go after this guy, they want to be that guy. They want the ball. They want to take all the shots. Yeah. And John isn't going to put a roster together where Cam Boozer is going to be standing there underneath going like, while somebody else dribbles the air out of the ball and chucks up like a 30% three. I mean, like, that's just not what he's going to do. So I thought the pre-Coward discourse was completely insane. I just kept saying there are options out there, and everybody's like, yeah, but who? And it's like, we don't know who, right? John's not texting me, telling me, hey, here's the plan.
That's what they think, though.
Would it be cool if he did? Great, and by the way, John, if you're listening, please do. It would be really great, but I won't tell anyone. I'll play dumb. But like, nobody knows. But it's pretty easy. I had a passive aggressive response to somebody, and I'm sorry if you were the person. I don't remember who it was, where somebody was like, "Who in the portal could we possibly get?" And I just sent a link to like the list of everybody in the portal. It's like if they're still in the portal, then we could go after them. Like until they are signed, they are available. And the same for any international player, the same for possible reclass candidates. That was always on the table forever, the entire time. And yet Duke fans were insistent, especially once Coward stock started to go through this roof all of a sudden. Everyone was like, we're cooked. We're so cooked. We don't have anybody. And I was like, yeah, we're going to get somebody. You think like John's just going to have like 9 scholarship players and go into the when there's 15 available, you think like, and there's all these international people, there's other transfer possibilities, there's reclass possibilities. Of course not. Of course not, dude. The guy's clearly learned. What we saw from him last year was so clear that, you know, he's not going to take depth for granted just because he's returning a lot of pieces. So, and that was the other thing that drove me crazy about all of this. If any school in the country, and I mean any school in the country, any of them, the highest possible ones, if they had a transfer class of Isaiah Evans, Caleb Foster, Pat Ngongba, come on, Russell, pull it together. I've slept 3 hours. Malik Brown, like if all those returning pieces went to any school in the country, that's a top, like what, 2 recruiting class, top 1 recruiting class in the portal out of anybody. Like,
yeah, sure. I mean,
like already, like that's the biggest possible thing that you can grab and bring back is these guys with massive potential. Just because they didn't score 18 points a game last year, that doesn't mean that they're not wildly valuable. And if any of them had entered the portal, they would be getting ridiculous offers from the Blue Bloods on down, all of them. Like
Pat Ngongba would have got a couple million from somebody.
Dude, Malik, like, are you kidding me? Like, and people want to sort of like decry Caleb Foster because he had a rough season last year, which look, he did. Let's be clear. He had a rough season last year. Caleb Foster would have gotten an offer to go to any high major school in the country and would have gotten a pretty penny for it. You know, because people remembered what he brought to the table freshman year, why people were so excited about him coming into sophomore year. I have all these messages from last summer where people thought Caleb like was a dark horse candidate to be the leading scorer for Duke, right? Like people were
we said that.
People were stoked on Caleb Foster, and then he had a bad year. But like, you know what? You can throw that out, right? Like give the guy another chance. We've had players who have had disappointing sophomore years who come back, have played brilliantly the next year. I mean, Wendell is, you know, a great example of that. Wendell sophomore year he didn't have the lows that Caleb had, granted, but like, you know, there's a template there for upperclassmen to improve, right? So especially ones with the pedigree that somebody like Caleb Foster has and who has shown the flashes that Caleb has. So I'm just tired of everybody saying we're cooked and all these people who are like, oh, the class, this sucks. John needs to, you know, take the portal more seriously. John needs whatever. Dude, we just came off a Final Four and a #1 team in Ken Pom year. We've got one of the best players in this recruiting class coming in. We've also got Nick, who's great. We've got Caden, who I think people are really sleeping on. We've returned all of these pieces, an incredible number of pieces. And then we're also now, like, we were always going to bring in a couple more dudes.
Yeah,
but
there was never going to be a chance that we'd let the roster just not go without any portal additions. Like that was never in the case.
It was never going to be that the entire backcourt was going to be Caden, Caleb, and Darren Harris.
Yeah,
right. That was never going to be the case, and I'm really high on all 3 of them, to be clear. But like he was going to hedge his bets more, right? Like you have to today. Like you've got to hedge bets. If one of them gets hurt, if you have only 3 guys, even if you believe all 3 of them are going to be high major caliber players and one of them gets hurt, you are cooked, right? Yeah. Like, so you've got to hedge your bets a little bit there. And he has. So people need to just, again, touch grass, go outside, enjoy the summer. Last season ended on a bitter pill note. Sure. Granted. You know what? Life goes on. Go see the new Mission Impossible movie. You know, Tom Cruise is still running. Ethan Hunt's still saving the world. Just stop being a baby for 2 goddamn seconds. Like, period.
That's the wild part. I feel like it was. I think it was really just because we lost the way we lost.
It is.
People were trying to find their healing, and in the form of, oh, can we have the same roster as we did last year? Well, you're not gonna. Number one, you're not gonna have as good of a roster as you had last year. That's just not the case. But given the
but nobody does. Nobody across
right.
the country does.
But given the circumstances of the landscape of college basketball right now, there's not going to be as many good teams as many elite dominant teams as there was this year. Like, it's just not going to be the case. So I
not to cut you off. If we hadn't added Sarr or Wilkins, this is still like a top 10 roster in the country. Like, like it's not, it doesn't have the depth maybe that we would have loved, but it's still a top 10 roster in the country with a top 3 draft pick. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I think people underestimate, number one, the player that Cam Boozer is coming in. While I don't think I have seen some exaggerations with saying he could be as good as Coop. I'm not going to put that on him because that's just unrealistic expectations from what we saw from Cooper this year. But Cam Boozer is a dog, and he's someone that could put himself in one of the best freshmen of all time class. He should. I think that's the caliber player he is. And I think Duke, even surrounding him with a lot of returning guys, I think people are not really valuing that as much as they should. But I think just to your point, the overreactions have been crazy. We get Duke fans are very passionate. We are top 5 passionate fan base in college basketball. We understand that, but you gotta calm down. You just need a reset after last season. I think that's a lot of y'all just didn't reset. You just carried the emotions over into the offseason and you're wilding. Some of y'all need to get off of Twitter too. Like these Duke Central, my guy. I love you, brother. I always see your support. I always see your support. But we need to stop with these comparisons. This guy is Malawatch on steroids. Because I've been seeing a lot, and it's just you're putting the wrong message in Duke fans' heads. But yeah, we always will appreciate y'all, but y'all just need to relax. Just relax. But now we can move on to Dame Sarr. Duke landed Dame Sarr this week, stole him right from Bill Self's hands. I mean, John Sarr gets whoever he wants at this point. Like Bill Self, I'm sorry, but I'm not even sorry. I don't even know why I apologize. I'm just laughing in your face. There's like Duke gets whatever they want at this point. And they land Dame Sarr. Really, really excited about him as a prospect. I posted it on Twitter yesterday. What I sent to y'all, and Russ agreed with it too. I wasn't going to post his message as well. It's my business, but I wanted Sarr over Ahmed. And that was just my mindset the whole way. I just thought he was a better fit. I thought he could bring more to what we need. I feel like he fills more holes with the roster we currently have. Him as a secondary playmaker, him as a defender. I think as a slasher, attacking the rim, we didn't really have someone right now like that. I mean, hopefully Isaiah takes that next step, but we did not have that on the roster, at least proven. And we hope Caleb gets better at finishing at the rim as well. But I think he fills a gap there. And even just from a standpoint of we need that dog defensively. I think he's going to be our top defender, at least on the wing. Malik will be probably our best overall defender, but we needed that lockdown defender. I texted his teammate. One of his. Let me just go back to it.
Jabari Parker.
It's not Jabari Parker. I was gonna kill that because someone has said that to me this summer. No, it's not Jabari Parker. Shout out to my guy Chemezi Metu.
Oh yeah, USC. What up?
Yeah, had his stint in the league is in Barca now. Actually recovered from Achilles. So shout out my guy on his recovery. But I said, what do you think of him? He said he's going to be our best defender and our best transition guy on the team. I asked him if the shooting was real. He said his shooting is probably his weak point, but it's not terribly bad. Like he can make shots. So I think that kind of tells you the player we should expect coming in this year.
His shot looks good. I mean, like the eye test, it passes. I mean, like I think I read somebody said that, maybe it's like a bit slow on the release. It's not quite as, he's not firing it up like Curry or anything. But I think that people underestimate that he doesn't need to be a great shooter. He just needs to be a fine shooter to keep teams honest, because his ability to slash is going to be so difficult to defend. So teams are going to want to sag off. Like, it's what we talked about all the time with, like, even with like Cooper last year. It's like, well, it's pick your poison. Like, would you rather Cooper shoot threes, or would you rather him beat you inside? And until he started making all of his threes, the answer was you make him shoot threes, right? And same thing here. You're going to want to make Dame shoot threes, but if he just makes them when he's got a little bit of space there because teams don't want him to blow past, I mean, he just has to keep them honest. And I think he's got the stroke to do that. It looks good. I don't really have much to add. I haven't seen a ton of it. Anytime anybody inspires any sort of like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comparisons, which I heard from a couple of people. Again, I haven't
He
seen
said that himself. He said he compares himself to
Sure.
SGA.
I mean, it's a great. That also just answers the question of like, well, who's in our starting backcourt? I mean, it's got to be him. He's going to be a second ball handler. I mean, I can't. I mean, maybe there's a. I don't think it'll be Boozer and Foster together. It feels more like defensively, you need Sarr out there.
Yeah.
Definitely Sarr's potential for creating for others along the way too. His transition attack will be really cool for this team. Yeah, I am very excited. I meant to mention one other thing when we were ranting about Duke fans being insane, and I think it ties to this. There are guys who you were sort of saying like, well, why are people responding this way? And is it because of the Houston debacle and whatever? And sure, it's partially that. And partially, I genuinely believe this with all my heart. It's because John is not K. Like, even for a while down the stretch there when, there were some like questions about some elements of K's like later teams. It was still like, yeah, but he's K. Like, he's won all these titles. He's earned it, right? He's earned the, like, you wave your hand and you say, just got to trust the guy that he knows what he's doing. John doesn't have that yet because he hadn't won the big one. And honestly, even once he wins one, there's going to be so many people who are like, but he had the most talented team. That's not really,
of course.
That's not a whatever, right? So there's always going to be a collective until John really starts racking up like year after year of massive success, like until he proves like I will be there at the end every year. There's just going to be insane takes like flying around every year with him. I mean, it's like Bill Self isn't at the end every year, and he's clearly one of the best coaches in college basketball, and with one of the biggest war chests in college basketball, right? And he's not there at the end every year, but because he's won one or I think he's won two now. Yeah. Then okay, he's got it then, right? Yeah. Like wave the hand. So I think that the fact that Shire trusts that Sarr is a good Coward replacement, assuming that Coward decides to leave, which I think at bare minimum this is a strong contingency for, then I have trust in that. Like I even though I have not seen much of Coward beyond some game tape and what I saw at the combine, and I haven't seen much of Sarr except for some what I saw at Hoop Summit, and then a couple of mixtape type compilations. Yeah. I'm going to trust the guy that clearly knows what he's doing in terms of roster construction. The other thing is that people bring up his second season when we brought back Flip and Mark and Jeremy and people are like, oh, that team was like a little disappointing. Yeah, the Elite Eight team that was finished like 7th overall in KenPom, like, yeah, maybe disappointing in the sense that we expected like a 1 seed and it was a 4 seed. Sure, granted, but like that was still a team that played late and was very good and very talented. And people are like, if only Ernest Uday had come. That Ernest Uday wasn't fixing shit. You know, like John did the right thing. It just didn't work out. Like we were maybe a guy short in depth, sure, but like, you know, I don't think that would have changed things radically. So
a lot of that too. Sorry, was out of his kind of hands as well. I mean,
totally.
I don't think people developed like they should have developed, even whether it was a Mark or even Flip too. I mean, Flip spent most of that season off season injured. So
I've said repeatedly, if Mark Mitchell makes 38% from three that season instead of like catching the yips like he did, completely different year. Like the spacing is completely different. His confidence level is completely like the whole thing would go different, but shit happens sometimes. So yeah, I'm very excited for Sarr. I'm very excited for what we've heard, and then I'm also very excited for Wilkins, who just committed today. And I got a text from a buddy of mine who is in coaching in the DMV, and he said like he thought that if Wilkins had stayed in the 2026 that he very possibly would have been top 5 in that class. Like he was a huge believer in sort of the meteoric rise of him and the potential that he holds.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about him that instead of going to a place like Maryland, where he could have played heavy minutes right away, but not been on a nationally relevant team, instead he chooses to come to Duke and be, a guy that's going to really have to fight for minutes this season, but that's valuable experience. That's, proving to the staff that he's the starter for the next season. And, that sort of mentality is exactly what we should welcome at Duke. So I'm really, really excited for him as well.
Yeah, Wilkins. I'm not gonna act like I've seen much of Wilkins. I just heard.
Neither have I. I've seen tape.
Yeah. From the Boston area. One of my friends actually did train him when he was younger, but he didn't have the latest scouting report on him. But yeah, from what I read, he's a two-way high potential player. And I think it's a situation where there's a reason he had all these high major offers, because people kind of saw what he could be in the future rather than obviously now. And I think
he's an athlete too, right? I mean,
right.
Like he's got, and that's something that this team until this week, I mean, with Sarr and Wilkins, like we weren't exactly an elite athletic. Unit,
we had nothing.
We had great size, terrific size, good versatility. Good offensive, skill, et cetera. But in terms of that, like quick twitch, athleticism, burst, et cetera, that wasn't really what this roster had much of. Yeah. So adding Sarr and Wilkins, both of whom, to my understanding, have some considerable athleticism that they'll bring to the table is really exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I won't be able to tell you if Wilkins cracks the rotation this year. I doubt it.
He's a dice roll.
Yeah,
but that's what we need with how many more. I don't know how many more scholarships we have. I don't think he's going to try to pursue anything super meaningful with the other ones. At least, certainly not until like Coward goes official one way or the other. But like with some of these end of rotation things, people are like, let's get Jameer Watkins. It's like, why would he want to come to Duke? Why would we want him, and why would he want to come to Duke? Like, what we'll do instead is maybe like go after a 4-star guy that might surprise us and crack the rotation and become a dude. Like that's the sort of really valuable thing that Duke could be doing. Does that mean that maybe that somebody like that doesn't really live up and then maybe they transfer or whatever? Sure, that's a possibility. That always is. That's a possibility with everybody. But like, man, I love signing for the quote unquote end of the bench a guy like Wilkins, who very easily could move up the rotation if somebody else gets hurt or disappoints or isn't ready or anything else. I mean, he's got all the opportunity in the world.
And I think it's a great long-term investment. Like I said, I think
totally.
This could be a player we look at in 3 years, 2 years, maybe 3. That could be an all-ACC potential player if he develops the way people are talking about.
And John clearly values retention. We saw it this offseason. He could have punted a guy or two and been like, I'll pursue more portal people. Right? He didn't want that. He wants his guys, right? He wants to bring his guys and keep them around. I think he sees the forest for the trees in, a lot of the teams that go far. They're teams like Houston, for instance, right? Teams that keep a lot of dudes. I mean, Florida brought back some really key players for this season. right? UConn, the last couple of seasons certainly was doing that, right? You get a couple of big name recruit portal pieces, and then you use them to supplement the development of your guys who stay multiple years. I mean, that's a really smart approach. It's really hard to do in this day and age, and I'd love to see us continue to do it. I'm really happy to have a guy like Wilkins on board.
Nah, for sure. And shout out to all the other additions. Was it Jack Scott? That's his name, Jack Scott from
Princeton, sure.
Princeton, and Ufo Chukwu. Shout out my fellow Nigerian. Someone was on Twitter saying like, "Oh, I think he can be a rotational player." Like, calm down. That's not why he was recruited.
No, that's not why he was recruited.
But if that does happen, then wow, amazing job developing him in some way. But I doubt it.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess looking at the full structure of the team currently as is, what are your thoughts on the roster that is developed right now?
I mean, it's a title contender, which is all you can ask for. It's a very clear title contender. I'm really high on Caden Boozer. I'm higher than most, I think. He's a really good free throw shooter. People don't like realize that. I mean, like, I know that Lord knows my mentions have been filled with people griping about free throw shooting in key spots last season.
One person specifically,
well, they also carried that into like, if Caleb Foster is going to run the point next year, he's a sub 70% free throw shooter, and there's some PTSD for sure, right, on that front. Caden's really good in that respect. He's great at making other players around him better. And he's a winner. He's a winning player. So I love a guy like that. It's like, look, I'm not going to say that he's necessarily like the same caliber of prospect that like Tyus or Trey were. But like, if Trey Jones had played in high school with a 6'10", twin brother who was a top 2, draft pick or whatever, then people might have been sleeping on Trey a little more, right? Like that's kind of what happens sometimes.
Yeah. I think
we see that with like Montverde and like some of the more crowded high school rosters. There are dudes that fall through the cracks a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really high on him. Sarr's great, Evans great. I definitely think Big Pat is due for a huge season. But even if it takes him some time, Malik is a defensive player of the year candidate. Like he's so good.
I think Pat is ready though. I think from what
Pat's ready too.
Yeah, I think from what as long as he stays healthy, that man's a dog. And I'm hoping this summer he's gonna put on, the muscle, chisel up a little bit, work on his athleticism, because like he has all the tools to be a dog. Like
I think they can do a version of what they did this year where, matchup dependent. If we need, switching on the perimeter, you've got Malik. If you need a guy who's going to enforce inside, you got Big Pat. So, just a great roster construction again, in my opinion. I didn't even mention Cam Boozer, who's fantastic. I've heard from people they think Nick could absolutely be a very contributing rotational piece this year, if not with some upside for more than that. There's just so much talent. It's probably the most talented. I think it is the most talented roster in the country. I mean, there's like Purdue's bringing back crazy experience. If Houston brings back Uzan, I mean, like they're going to be loaded again too. Florida obviously has a lot of talent. But again, title contention every year. That's the goal. This roster is good enough to do that. Period.
Yeah,
and people need to relax. People are still going to be in my mentions going, "Oh, we could upgrade at this position," or "Oh, we could use another guy," or whatever. We can't use another guy. Like, we're fine.
I'm definitely interested to seeing Caden Boozer and what role he's going to play this year, because I think it's going to be dependent on that outside shot. I think if that outside shot is falling for him at a high clip, whether it's 36, 37%. He's probably gonna push Caleb Foster. I don't want to say push Caleb Foster out. He's gonna definitely make it competitive with Caleb Foster for that number one spot, just because he does everything else really, really well. And that's his biggest drawback is the shooting. So we'll see. I'm very excited for obviously Pat, Cam Boozer, the front court potential. Isaiah Evans, I think he's the X factor to me. I think if he could take the scoring to a level that we think that we believe in him, that he can take it to, I think that will really set the tone for this roster. But
he's
so
going to be
a
an
lot-
emotional leader too, more than anything. I love having a
Yeah.
guy who's going to be out there talking shit and woofing, and I mean, like that's what we need.
Yeah. So we appreciate y'all. We'll tap back in soon. Russ is going to be on campus next week, no?
I will. Yes. So if you're in Durham and you see me walking around, yes, that is me.
Yeah. So say what up to Russ. Maybe we'll get somebody from K Academy. Hopefully they just give Russ a jersey and let him play. Because then I got tape. Then we got tape. Hey, you never know.
They will not allow me to do that. I didn't pay the whatever amount to go there, but I'm very excited.
David Bradley, friend of the pod, he could probably pull some strings from you. So we'll see. We'll see.
Hook me up, David. Come on.
But we appreciate y'all for tuning in for this quick chat. We'll be back soon. It's a fun season ahead.